Kia ora.
Hello and welcome to the NZ Ahead podcast. I have got a brilliant show for you today, especially if you are a teacher or if you are a parent. You're going to meet Mandy. Mandy is a member of our private NZ Ahead community, and she's here today to talk about her move from the United States over to the top of the North Island in New Zealand. She's living in Whangarei, which isn't usually a place that lots of people go to. We tend to see people in Auckland and Wellington and Christchurch and things. So that alone is really interesting because she has moved from Philadelphia to, like I say, Whangarei. The other thing you're going to love about Mandy is she is so honest and open about the expectations of moving to a country that you have never been to in your life. You're going to find out why she and her husband, who is a camera operator, and her daughter moved from America in the first place, and just what life has been like for her here. She's a teacher in a private school in New Zealand, and her daughter goes to state school, so that is really interesting. She talks about the difference and how that all works. And yeah, she just talks really openly about, like I say, just her expectations of a country that she'd never been to and what it's like in reality. So you're going to absolutely love her openness and her frankness and just her. She's just lovely. Like I said, Mandy is part of our NZ Ahead community. She's been in our community for well over a year now. And before we jump into the show, I just wanted to remind you about that fabulous community. This is a community of people who are all doing the same as you. They're making their dream of moving to New Zealand a reality. They're sharing their stories, their fears, their hopes, their dreams. We have got professionals within the group. We've got immigration advisors, people who can help you with healthcare and jobs and moving your pets and shipping and transferring your money and all things like that. Of course, me and Brian are in the community too, so we're there to chat to. But more importantly, this is about surrounding yourself with your tribe, with your people who are going through the same thing as you. So remember, if you want to be part of that community, you can sign up for our free 5-day video guides, which is 5 videos of life in New Zealand that me and Brian made and put together, and it's just fantastic. And at the end of those videos, you'll be given more details about how you can become a member of our private NZ Ahead community and let us help you make your dream of moving to New Zealand become a reality. You can get those videos by heading on over to www.nzahead.com/free. Okay, enough from me. I always set out and think I'll just keep it really short, and then here I am just chattering minutes into the podcast. Let's jump on in and talk to Mandy.
Kia ora.
Welcome to the NZ Ahead podcast. Everything you need to know about moving to and living in New Zealand.
There's a whole world here.
So nice to be with you again.
We call it Aotearoa around here, bro.
You'll be right.
We are your hosts, Liz and Brian.
Amazing New Zealand in the southern seas.
See, that's where I belong. That's home.
Good morning, Mandy. Welcome to the podcast. So excited to have you here with me this morning.
Good morning, Kia ora. Thanks for having me, Liz.
Yeah, you're flying in all the way from Whangarei up in the north,
Yes.
aren't you? So who are you and how are you sitting in New Zealand chatting to me about living here? Just give us some background about who you are.
Well, it's so crazy because, a year ago, I'm not sure that I would have thought that I would have been here chatting with you. We had kind of started looking sort of during the pandemic. My husband, though, had talked about New Zealand for years, and we'd watched shows like Flight of the Conchords and, just different things that were sort of centered in New Zealand in a way. And I was just always like, yeah, where even is New Zealand? Like, isn't that part of Australia or where? I don't know. And then when we looked at how far it was, I was like, oh, we're never going there even for a vacation. That's way too far. And I guess New Zealand was in the news a lot during the pandemic. And I just was really interested in what the prime minister at the time was doing. And I just heard all these positive stories or just the sense of community that I felt like we were sort of lacking nationally in the US. And so that kind of piqued my interest. And I thought, well, maybe I'll retire early, like maybe at 55, and we'll go over there and maybe just check it out then. And then I thought, well, let me see what happens if I get my teaching credentials, because I realized it was a lot harder to get a visa at 55. And so I thought, what if we went over there and checked it out? So I just started browsing what the teaching credentials would be like. I couldn't get a clear answer. So I thought, all right, I'm just going to apply and see what this looks like. And it was a really arduous process. I'd actually just found your YouTube channel at that time, and you had, I think literally the week before, you had talked to Carl from California. And so that was so perfect because he outlined everything I needed to do. It really took a lot of the guesswork of everything out of it. So I knew, over documentation, yes, they really want to see a syllabus, and go to a notary at my local politician's office. And that made it so much easier. So yeah, then they approved my teaching license. That would have been a year ago in April. And then I just thought, all right, I'll start trying to find some jobs. It was really hard. I heard that schools don't really like to consider out of country applicants just because so many people either flake or there's an issue with a visa or something like that.
So your husband and you and your daughter, you've got a daughter, haven't you?
Yes. Yep.
How old is your daughter?
She is turning 10 next month.
Right. So she was about
She was
7?
8.
8.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. 7, 8. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is really lovely age, isn't it? When you're bringing children over to New Zealand.
Yeah.
They're excited enough. They're young enough to be excited and not old enough to be like, oh, I don't want to leave my friends. And, like all that stuff that comes with it. We do want to talk actually later on in the show about the fact that you had to leave your son in for that reason, probably. I'm guessing.
Yes.
I don't know that for a fact, but he's back in the US. So whereabouts did you live in the States when all this was going on, when you decided to make that move to New Zealand?
We were living outside Philadelphia. So we lived in a northwest suburb, originally from Ohio in the US, but I moved out there right after I graduated college. So I moved out there to teach. And I went to grad school. My husband and I actually met working on a TV show together. So that was kind of fun. Yeah.
Sounds fancy.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. It was, we met on it was a reality TV show. And yeah, we weren't on it. We were behind the scenes. We weren't, we were production assistants, but yeah, it was kind of cool.
Is that before you got into teaching?
It was like in the middle of it. So I did it over the summer. I had just gotten laid off actually from an alternative school I was working at. And my cousin owns a casting company for reality TV shows. She's like, you should look into production work and get you some work. And I said, okay. And I had met him before. So that's how we met. That was back in 2004.
So your husband is a cameraman?
Yeah.
So
he does sports. Yeah. I think, yeah, he gets to go to a lot of really cool events. So, our baseball team, the Philadelphia Phillies, had won the World Series, and he actually got to work that game, which was pretty cool. He works for a lot of different professional sports and college sports and around Philadelphia. And then in the past couple years, he had started traveling more for soccer. So he was doing soccer all around.
So now this is where I'm interested, you see, because I always have this picture when people tell me about their lives, I build this imaginary life that you guys led over in the States. And you're a teacher, you've got a daughter, you live in Philadelphia, he's a cameraman, he's working in TV, which I think is just so impressive. And you seem to have this lovely life over in the US. All your family are in the US too, I take it.
Yeah.
Was it just the politics in America that you didn't like, or did you just want an adventure and think, I just want to travel, we just want to go and do something different?
Yeah, I think it was sort of a combination, being a teacher in a public school and lived in a pretty progressive area, but things sort of shifted after the 2016 election. And then they sort of shifted again when COVID hit. I think you're right. Like, we have a really great community. We had awesome friends. I really liked the school that our daughter was at. My son lived 20 minutes away. I was really respected and had a leadership role at the high school that I was at, which is a top performing high school. People move to send their kids to school there. I was just getting really burned out. Maybe in the middle of the pandemic, I just had this wake up. I'm spending so much time and energy at my work, and I was literally just like collapsing on the weekends. Like, I started to develop some health problems. I thought, wow, it just really isn't worth it. What's happening here? I guess that we looked then, all right, well, where would we go? And so We had looked at maybe Portugal, maybe Costa Rica, and we kind of wanted to move somewhere that was English based just so we would have some familiarity with the language. Like I said, I don't know how that just came up. I guess we just started looking at different things. I found your channel. There were so many videos and things that we looked at. We were like, yeah, so many people in our position too, I think, who had younger kids and who kind of just wanted to try something new. So I think it was a combination of that, like the adventure part and realizing like I don't want to wait until I'm 55 or 60 or wait till my daughter's in college. This is a perfect time because like you said, she wasn't in middle school yet. Her friends are important to her. And I think we were just at the verge of that when we left. If we waited another year or two, it would have been a lot harder for her.
What subject do you specialize in at your school when you're in the US? What subject did you teach?
English literature.
Okay. And
Yeah.
how old was your son who wasn't living with you, but how old was he when you left?
Oh, when we left, he was 26.
26, right. Okay.
Yeah.
And me and you have had a private conversation about this because my son is 23. I worry my life about that boy. Honestly, my daughter, she's fine. She's 20. She can cope. But him, for some reason, I just worry about him. So me and you really.
Yes, we really did. So doesn't get much easier.
So we'll get into that in a bit because again, I want to know how you moved to New Zealand and didn't bring him and all that goes with it. So you're a teacher.
Yeah.
You think, I want to get out the rat race. I want a slower pace of life. You've got a few health issues coming on. New Zealand is just that slower pace of life. It's just, you've watched our videos and we've convinced you.
Yeah.
So you got all your teaching credentials sorted, which was fantastic that you did that. You're a member of our community and I was watching your journey. Tell me about the job offer. Why Whangarei in the North Island of New Zealand? Because not many people, I don't want to say not many people choose there, but it's not one of the more obvious places that people move to when they move to New Zealand. So tell me about that.
We wanted to go as far north as possible just for weather wise and beaches. We really love the beach. I was tracking the weather the past couple years in the US because I wanted to see how cold did it really get, how wild were the weather swings, because in Pennsylvania, there could be frost in the morning and you have like a puffer jacket on by 1 o'clock, it's hot and you're putting shorts on, like depending on the time of year. And the summers are really, really hot. Everyone keeps telling me it's a big heat wave they've had pretty much all summer there. And you don't even really want to go outside. And then the winters are just brutally cold there. So I wanted something that wasn't quite that swing. I think actually also just going back to like the Slack group is a lot of people talked about the North Shore of Auckland and how much they really liked that area and it was easy to get around. Living right outside Philadelphia, it's literally 6 miles away. We just kind of wanted something a little bit different. And I think because both my husband and I grew up in really rural areas, so this kind of reminds me of where I grew up with all the farms and everything like that. So that's kind of how we started narrowing it down. And then it came down to where I could get a job. We kind of picky looking North Shore Auckland all the way up to Whangarei. It was really hard to get an interview. I interviewed on Zoom a public school that was in the North Shore, and the department chair really liked me. And she said, we ended up going with someone else. She said, but if you make it over to New Zealand, please make sure that you apply here again. And like we would email back and forth because I asked her about the school that I applied to. And she said, I don't know much about the school you took a job at. She said, but they offer the Cambridge curriculum, it should be good. They were very candid on the phone. Like we were very candid with each other at Huanui, where I ended up getting offered this maternity leave. I don't think a lot of teachers apply for jobs up here. I think that they admitted they interviewed me and one other person. And I think there were just a handful of applicants, maybe from that, like maybe 10 people applied.
To the school in Whangarei. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were talking on the interview, they said that's a big move, and it was for a maternity leave job. And it was, so I knew it was only going to be a year. And I think we kind of came to this conclusion that it was kind of good for both sides because I could fill their need of a position being open. They also said, that if we came over and it worked out and there was a position that opened up the following year, then that would be great. And if not, or even if a position opened up and I just spent a year there and it decided that wasn't the school that I wanted to be at, no big deal. They were very supportive and honest and open about that, which I appreciated.
You are here because you love New Zealand, just like me and Brian. And me and Brian made it our reality of moving over here. We arrived in New Zealand in 2009 with 2 small children, and I tell you what, hardly any information to our name. We came over here with no resources, no contacts, we knew nothing. One night while we were sitting around the fire when we got to New Zealand, we said, wouldn't it be great if we made something for other people in the same situation as us that gave them everything they needed to know about moving to New Zealand? And that's just what we did. We started a community of people, of like-minded adventurers from all over the world who are making their dream of moving to New Zealand a reality. This community is made up of 400 beautiful souls, each one bringing their own story, their own needs, their own information to our community. And I just love it. I tell you, it's just the best community in the whole wide world. If you would like to be part of that community or get to know more about it, then you can take our free 5-day video guide that we offer. This is a video guide that Brian and I created, showing you some aspect of life in New Zealand every single day. There is nothing like this on the internet. You won't find it anywhere else. It's brilliant and it's unique and it's free. So sign up to those 5-day video guides, and on day 5, I'll give you more information about how you can join our beautiful New Zealand community. Sign up now by going to www.nzahead.com/free. That's www.nzahead.com/free. Get to day 5, see all about our community, and I hope to see you on the other side. Okay, let's get back to the show. So just to be clear then, so you're in the States, you start looking for jobs, you like the north area of North Shore upwards because of the weather and people what had said on the Slack group. You for the interview in the North Shore school, you don't get it, but the lady says to you, if ever if you get to New Zealand, just please apply again if there's another position. And in the meantime, you're offered a maternity position in Huanui. So that sounds to me ideal, because I'd be thinking, well, I'll take this. I'll see if I like it. I'll see what it's like living rurally, and you've got nothing to lose because you're connected with the lady down in the North Shore. So I'm putting this together now, it's better to put it together, isn't it? Can you just, before we move forward and talk about what did you mean when you said you talked candidly on the phone? I don't know what that means. What does candidly mean? What does that mean?
Candid is like open. So like you're just putting everything out there. Like, it's not where you're like hiding motives, or like, for example, we had just said, I think the head of school even just said it, that he said, this is a maternity leave position. Like, I think he asked why I would move all the way over there for just a 1-year position. And at the time I said, well, I'll just take a year of leave at the school that I'm teaching at in the States. Like, I just kind of wanted a break, to be honest, even though the school I'm at is private. I was really interested in anti-racist education, and that's something that the teaching council has really pushed forward. Is how can we not just teach other voices and other works, but like anti-racism? How can we get people to sort of address that? And I felt a little frustrated at points in the States because that can be triggering to say that for some people. Even they kind of couch it under other terms, like, oh, we're teaching alternative texts, or we're teaching this, instead of, no, like, how can we work on equality for everybody, which is like a big thing for me. The candid part, that's just where that came up, like, because they asked, why would you do this? And I thought, I'll just take a year leave, not a big deal. This is a 1-year maternity position. The way that my school year in the state functioned, it seemed like it would work, because out here they go to school January through December. And the high school I was teaching at in the States, we have 2 semesters. So the kids have 5 classes from September until the end of January, and then they switch. And then they take a different set of classes for the second semester, so from February to June. And I thought, that's perfect. I'll end in December. We can still like spend the summer in New Zealand and avoid America's winter. And then I'll come back and start teaching again in the US. Like, no big deal. So that's kind of what my plan was.
Right. Okay.
A year ago.
I'm guessing it's changed since then, but
Yeah, it's not, yeah.
so I love that. I absolutely love what you said about being candid, because it just
Mhm.
it would be so tempting to lie, wouldn't it? And just go, oh no,
Yeah,
no, I really, really want to come. I've always wanted to come to Whangarei. And
yeah.
I just all I want is like to go from maternity position to maternity position. And
Mhm.
I'm so happy, but I just love that honesty and that openness.
Yeah,
And that is so New Zealand of just
yeah.
everyone respects each other then, don't they? Everyone knows where they stand.
Mhm.
Let's not mess about. Let's not tell lies. Just
Yeah,
tell me what you want. We'll tell you what we want and see if we can make it work. And I
yeah.
think that's something absolutely fantastic. Good point to remember, actually, isn't it? If you're listening and thinking,
Mhm.
because I know, again, this is a bit of a bit of a diversity, but it's just I know people on the Slack group will always say, oh, I couldn't get an interview, or they won't answer my emails. And we're the people that are in
Mhm.
New Zealand are saying, just phone them, or
Yeah.
just get hold of their number and get hold of them. And they can't seem to see that that's possible in
Yes.
New Zealand, just to be a little bit more open, and it's not so closed book. Do you agree on
Yes.
that or not? Would you say that's true?
Totally agree with that for sure. I even think, when just showing up, like you said, like my husband, when we moved here, he just got a job after 6 months of applying, and it was word of mouth and knowing someone,
Yeah.
and that's what they even said at Huanui. My head of school, the day I started, he said, "Welcome, we're happy to have you here again, like, if this works out and you wanna stay here, love to help you and have you, and if not," he's like, "I have connections all over New Zealand. I'm happy, tell me what kind of school you're looking for, and I'm happy to help you find something."
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Just touching on the anti-racism thing. So New Zealand, you'd
Yeah.
say is more forward thinking like that. Is that what you were saying? Yeah,
Yeah, for sure, and open about it.
right. Okay. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's the big tick then, isn't it?
Yeah, huge.
Okay.
Mhm.
So I'm getting the picture. You've taken the job. You've said, yep, I'm going to come over and go to Whangarei. Tell me about the conversation that you had with your daughter and your son about moving and leaving the other side of the world. And yeah, tell me how that looked.
That's a good question. I think he didn't think we were really going to do it. I think most people kind of were just like, "Yeah, yeah, like, are you really gonna do that?" Especially when I found out that I had to resign from my job at in the US, which was a big wrench in the plan, because that I was not expecting that. And so, yeah, Ethan, she's our daughter, she's really outgoing and bubbly, and at first she was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, cool, we get to go and just try something different," because we had a whole bunch of different ideas of what that was gonna look like
Mm.
at the time, and I remember telling Andrew, my son, I said, "You should apply for a job," he had just graduated from college, he has a bachelor's degree in computer science, and I said, "This they're looking for people like you could come out." He has a family that lives in England, and they were like, "Oh, you don't wanna go to New Zealand, it's really boring there, especially in Whangarei, like, whatever." And I don't know how much he really listened to that, but, he also has his friends, and he has a girlfriend in the US, and I think it looked a little different for him.
Mm.
So, although when he was out there this past week, I think, he came with his girlfriend, and they were both just like, "Oh, wow, this is, not what we expected," and they wanna come back, so it's
Oh,
a
that's
good little.
positive. Yeah, because he's just been over to
Yeah,
visit you, hasn't he? You've been
yeah,
you've been here since January. That's right, isn't it?
yes, mhm,
Yeah. So again, that makes me feel a little bit more at ease, because he wasn't living at home. He'd moved out already.
right,
He had his
yes.
girlfriend. He had his friends. He's just graduated college. Not like my son, who's still living at home. And I would
Yeah.
be like, no, I can't leave you. Um, yeah. So
Yeah, yeah, it is a little different in that way, and Andrew his dad lives back in the States,
right.
so
Okay.
his father is back in the area, and his grandmother is elderly and not in the best of health, so I think, like, all those factors kind of play in
Yeah. I
for him
forgot to ask
staying.
you, have you ever been to New Zealand before? What?
No,
Okay, so
nope.
there's no YouTube videos that did this then, was it?
Yep.
All your
It's
research that you did.
totally sight unseen.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
And that makes
Yep.
it more. You're an exciting person. You're a brave, adventurous person. You really are. And
Oh, thanks.
yeah, I love that. Um, Whangarei, I've got to ask. I mean, we've only ever been up there. It's a beautiful, beautiful part of
Yeah.
the world. But again, I can't help but think your husband's a
Mhm.
TV edit, a cameraman. You're a high
Yes.
school teacher, English literature. You live near Philadelphia. I
Yeah.
know you lived rural when you were kids, but what was it like when you got off the plane and you got you in your car and you drove to Whangarei? Just tell me what you
Yeah.
thought when you got up there. What did you think?
It was, it was definitely surreal. Well, first of all, driving on the other side of the road, so having to remember that and just what side do we get on in the car. And then I felt so much like where I grew up in Ohio. I mean, there was just farms everywhere. I was in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, so it was hilly. There were, definitely steeper peaks around here. Um, and even just getting out of the car, like, because we're staying at a place, that's on 14 acres, and there's cows. Literally, I can look out my window and they're right there. Um, so I kind of felt like that in some ways. Our daughter was super excited because she'd only known growing up in the suburbs. We lived on a really tight street. There were lots of kids in the area. It was in a cul-de-sac, so one way in and out of the neighborhood. And uh, she was used to kind of having that, but she loves animals. And so the fact that there were animals all around, that, we got off the plane and it was summertime because we left and actually got delayed by snow and ice. So the fact that we came here and uh, pretty much drove straight to the beach, and
Did
that
you?
was really cool. Yeah,
Oh,
really
that's cool. Oh, that's
yeah.
nice. I'm sorry I'm jumping all over here, but
No, 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 it's okay.
I keep remembering things that I didn't ask you. Did you
Yeah.
did you sell your house in the US or did you rent it or what have you done?
So we actually had sold our house back in 2017 to in hopes to buy something in an area. Or that was also, we sold our house so that we had the freedom if we wanted to leave Philadelphia and go somewhere, that we had that freedom. Um, right when the pandemic hit, we were just about to close in on buying house. Like, we had said that we were going to buy a house by April or May of 2020. And then COVID hit, and we could have bought something at that time, but we were unsure what was going to happen. And so, yeah, we were just renting a townhouse. So we were lucky in that we didn't have to sell anything. We also didn't move all of our stuff over. We whittled everything down to like a 10 by 17 foot storage unit. And so most of our, and then we shipped about 10 big boxes of things in addition to all of our suitcases. So most of our stuff is back in the US because where we're staying is a furnished rental.
Right. So the stuff you brought over with you was just things like clothes and toys and personal. So you didn't bring any furniture or anything like that. That's
No.
back in the US. Right. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Can I ask, because you resigned from your job, you were told you had to resign. Was that
Mhm.
hard? Was that hard to do that?
Yes, that was really hard. Um, and I think it was, the difficult thing was, is that I had been at that school district for 20 years.
Oh,
I was a really well-respected teacher. I led my grade level team. I did a lot for the school. I was sponsor of 3 different clubs. I was really involved and did a lot, especially for like diversity and awareness and things like that. And so I think the school, I'd never had a sabbatical, and you can apply for one, um, and they were not willing to give it to me. Um, and I was really kind of saddened and shocked and disappointed that they wouldn't do that for me, because it was an unpaid leave. I didn't even ask for the sabbatical. um, I said, "Can you just, hold my spot for a year?" And I couldn't I was really surprised that they said no. And so they said, "Well, you can resign." And I said, "Oh, okay." And then they'd asked me twice after that, "Are you gonna resign?" Because I had to send them everything. I wasn't hiding anything from them. They knew that, the job I'd wanted to take was starting in January, and, um, I didn't have to give them any notice. I could have said, "Friday's my last day" on a Thursday and been done, and they would have been scrambling to find someone. So, I felt I felt really disrespected. There's a whole bunch of other things that went on with them that was really eye-opening and really disappointing and made me realize I wouldn't wanna go back and work for them. And I think it was eye-opening for a lot of my coworkers there too, because they're like, "Wait, what? Mandy does so much here. It's not like she's just a teacher that shows up, at the start of the day and then she's out at the end." Like, you know, I really did a lot. And so I kinda had thought they would recognize that, and they
Yeah.
didn't. And so, yeah, that was hard because I was really entrenched in the community there. Um, and I still have students who, will email me and they're like, "Are you coming back next year?" And "No."
Mm.
So,
And
yeah.
and that would be difficult because
Mhm.
difficult in one sense, but then on the other side, it probably made it a little bit easier for you to just go, "Well,
Yeah.
you know what? I'm going for it then because there's nothing holding
Yeah.
me here." Imagine if they'd have said to you, "Oh, Mandy, it
Mhm.
would have been comforting to know that they were holding your job open for you, and you would expect them to do that after 20 years and everything that you've given to them. But
Yes.
um, now with that gone, and you haven't
Right.
that, it kind of gives it a bit of a cleaner. And I know that probably sounds a little bit harsh because it would have been all
No.
that, but it kind of gives you that little bit of cleanness, doesn't it? Like, well, this
Yes.
is it then. This is it. I'm going on to a
Yeah.
completely different thing. So
Yes.
maybe it was for the best.
Yeah, that's kind of what, I try to look at it as, is that, okay, well, they kinda made a decision for me, and then it opened my eyes to things that, I kind of had been feel it made me want to look elsewhere anyway,
Yeah.
in some ways. So it did bring that clarity to that. Um, I think the real struggle then came when Keats had such a hard time. That's my husband, finding work over here. I think it was harder than we thought it was going to be, and that stuff kind of added on
Yeah.
to what made it hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we will get to Keats in a minute. There's so much I want to ask you, so I'm going to try and talk as
Yeah, fine. That's okay. You're fine.
it's always the way you start talking to someone and
Yeah.
it goes off on little different paths. And because
Mhm.
I've got so much respect for you, because it takes a lot to leave a job that you've been in for 20 years where you're well
Mhm.
respected, where you've worked hard to climb that flipping, ladder of and
Mhm.
throwing yourself into the community. And I can tell, I know you, I know from talking to you and being with you in the community that you're the kind of person that gives it everything, and
Yeah.
you're not a half-hearted person. And it's
Mhm.
it's it's really difficult to move to a different country and then go blah, 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 right back down. And then
Yeah.
no one knows you, no one knows what you've done, no one knows,
Mhm.
what you're capable of. And you've just got to start proving yourself again. And I think that's a
Yeah.
real testament to people who do move to New Zealand, that they're willing to do that. They're willing to put that to one side and think, well, this is what I want, so this is what I'm going to do.
Yes.
So yeah, tell me about your husband. So did he have a job when he came over here, or did he just come over here with you getting your job and to see what would happen? What happened there?
He thought he had some stuff lined up, so that was also, unexpected. He thought he had a bunch of connections, a lot of the crews that he works with, his directors are from all over the world, so they're not just from the US, and so they said, "Yeah, no problem. We can make sure we get you some work in New Zealand." And so, I think literally right before we left or not long after we got here, uh, some of his connections emailed him and they said, "Okay, so things have changed," because There was an issue with people who televise sports. So it went from Sky One to a different production company. And that was happening in March, right after we got here. And so that kind of threw everything off. I think it kind of rumbled throughout and like rippled um, throughout the camera people who were already here. And so, yeah, he went to met like a camera crew that worked a rugby game up here in Whangarei, and he kind of just volunteered, helped them, and just to kind of see what their camera crew ran like, and just to get his name out there and a face. And he does have some work booked coming up in August, but he's looking at maybe flying back to the US in December to try to just work from there for a while and then come back. That's sort of uncertain. We're not sure what's going to happen.
Yeah. Okay. And well, good luck with that. Just good
Yeah, thanks.
luck with that. But back to you. So you went to work at this private school in Whangarei.
Mhm.
Your daughter was in public school. She just went to the
Yes.
state school.
Mhm.
And this is what I'm always fascinated about, is when mum works in a private school and the
Yeah.
public school. So what has that been like? What does a private school in New Zealand look like? Just tell me about that.
It's funny because it was the opposite in the US. I taught at a public school, and Ethan went to a small private Quaker school.
Right.
So we kind of flipped, I guess, scenarios when we came here. Class sizes are definitely smaller in a private school. They definitely kind of market that. I would say they're not much smaller than the public high school I taught at in the US, but the US's system is a lot different with funding and how education is provided in that way, I would say. Ethan is in, like, her class is really big. I think there's maybe 27 kids in it. They are it's a combination of years 4, 5, and 6 altogether. I think there's 3 rooms that have that.
In Ethan's
Yeah, yep. So at the elementary school that she goes to, her elementary school goes up to year 6. A lot of them do around here. There's 1 or 2 that I know of that are public or state schools that go up to year 8. The school that I teach at, and that was also something that was really surprising to me. It's called Huanui College, but they actually start in year 7. And so the irony, I don't know if you want to hear this part of the story, but like the irony was, I literally, I'd been kind of going back and forth last November. Do I put this resignation in? It really changes things to not have that safety net of not having a job back here in the States. What if we go over there and we don't like it? Or, um, we just decided that after a year that was it. Like we had our adventure. That's good. And we can't come back because it just, there's no way. And even though there's a teacher shortage in the US, like if you want to go to a good district, like where I came from, there's no shortage. They're going to find people. So I literally had just sent my resignation in that morning to the school district, and I emailed the head of the department at Huanui, and I said, I was just wondering, like, what is my schedule going to be like? Because I knew that they were finalizing them because it was the end of their school year. And he said, and I thought he was joking, but he was not. He's like, oh, we're going to give you a year 7, a year 8, year 9, 10, and 11, or something like that. And I read that, I had to read it a couple times, and I almost broke into tears. I was like, when I realized he was being serious, I was like, wait, I thought, like, we had talked about me teaching these upper grade levels. Like, in the US, I taught 9th, 10th, or 9th, 11th, and 12th grades. So they graduate at the end of 12th grade. And I purposely did not teach in middle school because I didn't want to teach in middle school. I don't like middle school. I started in middle school in Philadelphia and around the area, and it has nothing to do personally with the kids. It's just they're all hormonal and up and down. And I just, it takes a special person to teach in middle school. And I just don't feel like I'm that person. And because he had said, he was like, we gave you these 5 different classes. We want to make sure you get the full New Zealand experience. And I literally like had to have a Zoom meeting with him. And I said, I can't do that. Like that, that would run out a new teacher anywhere.
Yeah.
The most that my school where I taught had kind of learned is that, okay, maybe 4 new things, ideally 3. They would teach, if you had to teach 5 classes, you might teach 2 year 10s and then 2 year 9s and something else. But his excuse was that, oh, well, you're a seasoned teacher, you should know what you're doing. And I had to explain to him because he's only ever taught at the school and I think he's only taught 7 years or something that no, like I can't come out for that. Like that's madness, because it doesn't matter. All of it's new. So it doesn't matter how many years I taught. I'm still new to New Zealand. I'm new to the school. Um, I didn't realize until he had sent me the schedule that Huanui even started at year 7. Like, Ethan's private schools, they had sort of a lower school and an upper school, and that's how most private schools do it in the US. So, you could go to Huanui College, but they might say, all right, the lower school kids are here and the upper school kids would be over here. And so he took away the year 8, I think. So I have right now a year 12, I have 2 year 10s, a year 9, and a year 7. And ironically, like the year 7s that would be equivalent of like 6th grade in the US. They're super sweet. I only have one section of them. They're so excited to tell me things. They come in.
Always the way, isn't it?
Yeah. Super sweet, so I think I couldn't do that all day. I could not do all day of year 7, but for one period a day, I
Yeah.
love their enthusiasm and, they raise and I also think of it, they're close to my daughter's age.
Yeah.
So, kind of thinking about it in that way. But yeah, it was not sort of what I expected coming in some ways, and that also made it really hard because I was, questioning, like I had a really great schedule I left in the US. I knew my content. I knew what I needed to do. I knew the skills I needed to do. I knew how to handle things. What did I do? What happened? And then I went through a period of that for a little bit, and then I just thought, I kind of like what we said before, I kind of remembered why I didn't want to stay at the school that I was at. And, I think the way that I left and how they wouldn't give me my year of leave, and just other things that they had handled, and the pace that it was going. I think I had mentioned before about how I had so many kids with just crippling anxiety, and I just felt like they weren't addressing that
In the US.
enough. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, let's just talk about that because we mentioned that on the Zoom call, didn't we? About
Yeah.
a lot of people say they have this fear of they're bringing their kids to New Zealand. They're coming from a very academic background. They're
Yeah.
in the US or South Africa or the UK, wherever they're coming from, and their kids are like, they're doing really well at school. And then they're
Yeah.
worried that they're going to bring their children over to New Zealand, and they do a bit of Googling and they find out, oh yeah, well, the education standard isn't up to the rest of the world. It's very, they're not learning as much. And this was such a brilliant conversation we had with our group on Zoom the other day, because all these people were like coming on and saying what their experience was of their kids being in New Zealand. But can you just speak to that as a teacher at a private school and also as a mother with a daughter at a public school? What is the standard of the education in New Zealand?
I mean, it was definitely an adjustment, and some of that adjustment was coming to a private school. Some of it was coming to Whangarei. And my school teaches the Cambridge curriculum. So I can't really speak too much to what NCEA is like or what they do, except for the fact that I belong to like some Facebook groups of NCEA teachers, just to kind of see what they're doing. And it feels like they're doing a lot of what we were moving to and doing at my school in the US, in terms of a wide variety of texts, a lot of different skills, different ways to show those skills. So that, without me being in an NCA school, I'm not sure. Um, our daughter, and it's hard to say because she's only halfway through a year here, and she had left halfway through a year in the US. So she was in fourth grade in the US, and she started in year 5 here in New Zealand. Um, she was already advanced for her age in the US, and so we had thought, did we do the right thing by putting her in year 6 or 5? Should we have pushed to put her in year 6? I think private schools are more likely to do that. There's a girl who is my daughter's age, so she's 9.5, I think, at Huanui, who is in year 7. So there's more flexibility, I think, with that. Private schools will have you do an entrance exam. They do look, do you have any type of paperwork? If your kid has any learning challenges, they will look at that. Public schools will handle those as well. I'm not sure. Uh, my daughter has ADHD. We never submitted paperwork for her. She's not on medication, but she seems to be thriving at school. And I think it was a little bit more seamless for her in a way because the school she was at was a small Quaker school, and there was a lot of nature involved. There was a lot of, honoring the individual for who they are. It was small class sizes. They went outside a lot. She wasn't in a traditional American school where you're sort of expected to sit in your seat all day.
Mm.
And I feel like here they're outside a lot, that, no one has, we actually have her first parent teacher interview next week. But she's scoring well above where she should be for her year group on her report that just came home. I feel like she is just doing a lot. So I don't think that she is lacking or that she's struggling. She wasn't struggling in school in the States, so I don't know how that would change if she had been struggling. At Huanui, they do have they call key learning. So kids who do have dyslexia or who have some sort of other learning challenge, there's a room they can go to, and they'll either get extra help, like sort of extra lessons a couple days a week, or you can send them there if they need a reader writer for an exam. Um, there are 2 people that staff it. I do feel like we had more support at the school that I came from in the US, but we also had, 1,600 students in 4 grades there. Huanui has 350 students in 7 grades, I think. So, yeah, I know that those kids get help and they do get support. So I'm not sure how it compares.
Thank you. It's interesting what you say about the anxiety at the school in the US, because we did talk about this, about how it's more of a rounded education and life learning experience for children in New Zealand. Again, we talked in depth about how they're encouraged to speak more, and how going outside and social skills and feeling confident and all those things. So it's not just a education bang 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 bang, like grades, but that is the public school experience. But do you think in the private school experience, the kids there are just more focused on getting good grades, or is it also a more rounded experience in a private school in New Zealand?
I think it's also more of a rounded experience. And I think, like, I'm still trying to wrap my head around how they're graded here as well. Because I had definitely more kids at my school in the US concerned about how many points something was worth, or what it did to their grade point average or something like that. Whereas here, especially since it's all assessment based, and I can say this just because I've talked to some kids who do go to public high school here as well, but in the private school that I'm at also, since it's all tied to these exams that they have to take and what marks they get on these exams, um, I think there's a different focus. It's really, I'm trying to wrap my head around it. It seems more that they want to do well on these exams that they'll have to sit for, so they understand that they're not going to contest whether they got, an A or a B on a paper that I gave them. It's more like they actually look at the feedback for the most part. I don't want to generalize, but the kids who want to do well, they'll look at the feedback and they genuinely want to know how to do better so that when they sit for these exams that they have the skills that they need to do well on them. So, versus um, kids, my students back in the States who seemed less focused on what the skills were and just more, well, this assignment was worth this many points and it affects my grade point average at this level. And, I need more points on this. So instead of, okay, yeah, like I need to know how to write because that's a life skill. No matter what job I go into, I'm going to need to communicate clearly. So
The reason I ask this is because it's no secret that, like you said earlier about your son, oh, New Zealand's boring. New Zealand has this reputation of being so laid back and so, so easygoing. And with that can come, well, what's my child going to do? What sort of education, what job are they going to get? What they're going to grow up to be. And it's this whole worry, isn't it, about, at least if they stay here, they'll get a good education, they'll get a really good job, and they can, they can do well in life. So that's the reason I'm asking, because it's that fear. It's all right for us adults because we want out the rat race. We want that laid back. We worry about our kids because what if they don't, and I think that's why I'm so keep
no, it's okay.
Point, because it's just, is it true that you come to New Zealand and think, oh no, my kid isn't going to do well because look at everyone, they're just all they're interested in is just playing outside in their bare feet and not even getting an education. Is it like that or not, would you say?
I don't think so. I will say, like, I think it honestly depends on the school and where you live. I would say, I know that at my daughter's school, they just recently started doing structured literacy and they did this whole math program, but that's because that's at their school. So you could go, to the next primary school in the next neighborhood, and even though it's literally right down the road, they could be doing something totally different.
Right.
I would say, and talking to other Americans who live here, there's a few American students who go to the school where I teach right now. And I've had a couple conversations with their parents, and it was really interesting. There's one elementary school that's around here. It's not the one my daughter goes to. And this mother who moved over from the US had said, they had to really get involved in the PTA. She said, because it's kind of what you're saying. She said, that's great that they're outside and that they're barefoot and they're in nature and they're running around. But at the end of the day, we still need to learn basic math facts, and we still need to learn how to read, and we still need to learn writing and editing and things like that. And so they got really involved with their school, and I know that they had just got a new principal, and she said it really changed things. Like, that elementary school now is sort of changing their focus and changing what they're doing. So, it honestly, it's just like in the US where, depending what neighborhood you move into or what school you're going to, it could vary widely. And it seems to be that way here also, that it really just depends on the school. So some are definitely more academically focused, and some maybe not as much.
Yeah. And thank you for that honest answer, because
Yeah.
that's all we want, isn't it? It's just like, just tell us the truth.
Mhm.
Just,
Yeah.
how does it feel? And I love what you
Yes.
said about you also just seek it out. It's what you want,
Mhm.
what your child wants, and you go and seek it out. Because as you were
Yeah.
talking there, I was thinking about when we left Bath in England, an hour on the train to London. My son was just massively, and my
Yeah.
daughter, I could see they were going to go down the theatre route. And I remember people saying to me, what they're going to do in New Zealand, like, then there's going to be no acting. There's going to be, you're not going to, all they're going to do is just play rugby and do sports. And yeah, but that's what people said.
Yeah. Yeah.
How silly, because now my daughter lives in Wellington, she's in shows and she's doing what she loves. And it's just, I think
Yeah.
you find it, don't you? You find what you're
Yes.
looking for and you go for it. So yeah, I think that was a really good answer, and a lovely way of looking at it. Um, before I let you go, because I can see I'm looking at
Yeah.
my clock and I'm very aware that you've got a busy schedule today. You've got guests
Oh,
arriving.
yeah, that's fine.
Are you
That's
happy?
fine.
Are you glad that you made the move to New Zealand?
It depends on the day. No, I think overall, like, yeah, I think we're really trying to just sort of stay, in the moment, and, there's a lot of really great things that we remind ourselves, why we came over here, and, I think just giving ourselves that time, to say that we committed to being here for a year, and, I thought that by this but we kept saying, "We'll wait till term break in July, then we'll sit down and make more of a plan, what are we gonna do?" And term break is pretty much over, and we have not decided what we're going to do. So, I've, oh, I don't know what's gonna happen, so but I'm glad that we did this, and I think part of it also had to be me breaking my mindset of, well, once we get over there, like, that's just it, like, we're there for good, um, and instead, I go back to the original plan that we had, which was, "All right, we're gonna try it for a year, and we're gonna see what happens, and if we can make it work, I think that we would love to continue to make it work." Um, and so I don't know, my answer might change in October or November or December, but I don't regret that we did this.
Mm,
So, and there's a lot that we really love about it here, and a lot of great people that we've met, and just, having when else would you get that experience?
mm. What is it that you love about New Zealand the most? What is it that's making you happy?
I think just the change in pace. I think that that's helpful. I think we've spent a lot more time together as a family, which has been nice. I think that there's interest, like, our daughter is involved in a lot of different things. And I think it's just sort of going back to that anxiety piece. I felt like when I was a kid, if you wanted to join a sports team, you could be 10 or and never having done it before and just kind of pick it up and try it. And I feel like where we were living in the US, it was like, oh no, if you want your kid to play field hockey, you had to have them in a travel team by the time they were 5 or 6 instead of, let's just kind of try it out. All types of sports and things like that. She found a circus school here. She was bummed to they were doing circus. There's a school in Philadelphia, and so we found one here. She's doing acting. She loves acting, so kind of like your daughter, like,
Oh,
you kind of find those things.
stick.
Keats, as kind of evaluating what he wants to do. Um, yeah, so I think like we just and I also love the fact that, when I go into my school, I'm not fighting cell phones, that, kids are engaged, they're not sneaking them. I feel like I like the fact that education is compulsory until 16 here, and that there are so many different directions students can go, and that all of them are valued. Whereas I felt like at the school I taught at, in the area that I lived, it was, if you didn't go to college, like, what were you doing? There's something wrong with you, or, kids were afraid to take a gap year, or all of their classes were based on, well, what's going to get me into a good college, because their parents were pushing that so hard. And I just feel like here, when I look at like all the different career paths they have, it's just such a variety, and it makes sense. that, okay, like we have these apprenticeships for you when you're 16. You want to try this out? Great. Like that's such a good age to try it because when are you going to try it? When you're paying money for college? And then I can't tell you how many former students I've had who get a degree in law or, nursing or whatever and realize that they just hate it, but they feel like they had to commit because they never had an opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. And do you realize that you probably can't see it, but do you realize what a leading example, a wonderful leading example you are to your own daughter by doing what you're doing?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
are taking things as they come and you are trying things out. And I've got so much respect for you, Mandy, because like I say,
Thanks.
you've left a very safe, well-paid, well-respected job in the US where
Mhm.
and your husband had a job and everything was going fine, but because you could see how it was impacting on your health and just that go 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 go
Mhm.
go, you decided to just take the big step of seeing how different life can be. And it's fantastic to see that. And I know that it must be really, really scary. And you're thinking,
Yeah.
going to be happening in 6 months. I want to,
Yeah.
because I think as adult human beings, we're like that. We like to know security, don't we? But
Yes.
life isn't like that, is it, Mandy?
Yeah.
You know,
No.
and when you're rolling with it and playing that game and you're just going and seeing what comes next, as scary as
Yeah.
it is, it's to be admired. It's to be, I'm just in awe of people who do this because it's brave and you discover
Yeah.
what you love and what you don't love and what you want and what you don't want. And that's no different than our children, is it?
Yeah.
Like you said, play soccer for 6 months. If you don't like it, leave. But it seems that in the
Yeah.
US, it was like, if you're in, you're in. Like,
Yeah.
I never knew what it meant when I would hear like soccer moms, when they'd say about soccer moms in the US. But now I'm sort of like getting an idea now
Yeah.
you said that it's so
Yes.
serious and competitive. And it's like, why? Why should that
Yeah.
be, Just,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's nice because they have that level of stuff out here, like, you can still be competitive and still do things, but there's so many other kids who are sort of more, like, at a rec level or just kinda like, because it's so pushed not I don't wanna say pushed because it sounds forced, but it's just supported to be active here, and so I really like that they're just, kinda like, my students in the States, they w if they weren't playing a sport, they kinda just all went home and played video games or just kinda hung out and were on Snapchat all day.
Yeah.
Whereas here, everybody seems to be involved in something that they like.
Mm,
And there's so many different activities that they can do.
mm.
So, yeah.
Well, I'm really excited to see what you do next because
Yeah.
your maternity position is up in January, isn't it? So you've got what
Yeah.
another 6 months, and your little
Mhm.
mind must just be whizzing because I'm sure that
Yes.
you see your daughter getting settled and making friends, and you're wondering what to do and where to go next. And like I said,
Yes.
I'm not taking it away from you. I know it's a very, very brave thing that you're doing. It's really brave, and
Oh, thanks.
yeah, it's not easy, and it takes a certain
No.
person. And it's what we always say on the Slack group is if it was easy, like if people
Mhm.
they'd all do it, but they don't because who wants to put
Yes.
themselves through this? Because it's not easy, is it? It's
No.
to get to where you want to go to, you've got to take some rough turns and tumbles and dead ends and
Yes.
come back out and try that, and it's just that,
Yeah, definitely.
that's life, isn't it? That's what makes life what it is, I suppose.
Yes, I agree, and I think just reminding yourself, like, all right, what are the reasons that you were doing this? Because I've also talked to people like Americans, but from other countries as well, who I think kind of set this idea of New Zealand as this utopia and oh, everyone's so happy and it's so laid back and just want to get there for that. I think you have to kind of remind yourself like, well, what do I want to leave behind and what am I really striving for instead of this comparison of like, well, New Zealand is like this and the US is like this. Like there's two totally different countries in a lot of ways and you just you'll go crazy if you compare just this, well, in the US and over here, and then you just can't do that. You have to kind of remind yourself, all right, what's important to me? So family time is important to me. Where am I getting that? Or, it's important that my daughter has a lot of different options for her and she feels supported in who she is. So where can I find that?
Mm.
So
That is such good advice.
that makes
Yeah, that's brilliant advice. Yes. And it is. I couldn't agree more. It don't compare it. I mean, I know we do on
Yeah.
this show because we're trying
Right.
to give people an example of like, what they're leaving and what they're coming to. And
Yeah.
and also that whole thing about the New Zealand is utopia. No, it is not. It is not.
Yeah.
It has things that you want and things that you will love, but it also has things that are going to drive you insane. And like you said,
Yes.
just be aware of that and think about what you want from your life, your family, what your morals and needs and wants are. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's really good advice.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Cause I think it's easy to use like a point of comparison. And maybe that's the difference. Like you're right. Like there's a lot of stuff we looked at, like, well, what is education like here versus, so my comparison is I know this experience from the US. So how does that experience compare to what I would find in New Zealand? Maybe evaluate. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for more. Like you can't be evaluative when you're holding New Zealand here and the US here in some ways, because it's not equitable. Like you can't transfer easy, like, here's a US school and here's a New Zealand school. I can tell you what my experience was like at the school I was at in the US and what my experience is like here in New Zealand. But I couldn't draw a line and say, well, this is totally better overall, hands down, way more checks in the well, okay, so if I look at, structure, like communication, there was better communication staff wide at the school I was at in the US. But if you look at student participation, okay, I feel like my students here are way more engaged and, you know, involved in each other's lives and in the classroom. So, what do I find? What do I evaluate and judge as being more important to me instead of like, this is bad or this is good.
Yeah. So before I let you go, is there one piece of advice that you can think of that you would say, I wish I'd done that differently? Or just, I mean, you might have already just said it with you not comparing, but is there anything else that you can think of that I haven't asked you or you'd like to share with someone who's sitting right now in another part of the world thinking, I want to move to New Zealand? Is there anything you'd like to say?
I would say just be very open to changes in what you think. Like I said, sitting here a year ago, I had a very different vision of what our whole process getting over there would be like, what it would be like when we arrived here. And I think just get as much information as you can, just hearing people's experiences and just keep an open mind. Like, don't get a rigid, oh, well, it's like this, or, they're just barefoot and playing outside all day, or they're not doing anything, or just be open and understand that New Zealand is not a monolith and that there's a lot of pockets of variety. And so, Whangarei is going to be different than Taranaki, which is going to be different than Tauranga. So there might be some overlap, but yeah, just be open and don't be rigid in what it's going to look like this.
Yeah. Fantastic advice. Mandy, thank you so much for joining me. And thank you for going over time. I promised you we wouldn't go
I didn't.
5 and I've kept you.
It's okay.
Yeah, you're a wonderful person to talk to. And I cannot wait.
Talk a lot.
I cannot wait to see where you go next with this adventure of yours, and whatever you do, it's going to be wonderful because you're going to make it so. And how lucky are the kids in Whangarei that they've got you as a teacher. That is just fantastic. So thank you for bringing your skills and your warmth and your compassion and your open-mindedness to New Zealand. And thank you for joining me on the show today.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. I had a really great time. So
okay.
It was awesome talking about all this.
Thank you, Mandy. I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Liz.
Bye.
Bye.
I really hope you enjoyed that show as much as I enjoyed recording it. If you're moving to New Zealand and you are interested in joining the Slack group, the private community group that we raved about and talked about on today's show, then you need to head over and get our free 5-day video guide. This is a video guide that sends you a video every day for 5 days, sharing some aspect of what life in New Zealand is like. It's absolutely free. And then when you get to the 5th day, you will be given the option of whether or not you want to join the private community, the one that we talked about. It's a fabulous, fabulous resource. I don't need to say anything more because you've already heard all about it. Go over, take the free 5-day video guide, get to day 5, and then you can decide whether or not you'd like to be a member and join our private community along with me and Brian and all those other fabulous people that are walking along the same path as you and making the move to New Zealand. So head on over to www.nzahead.com/free. Head on over to www.nzahead.com/free and get your free 5-day video guide. Get to day 5 and then you decide if you want to come and join us in our private membership group. I hope to see you on the other side.